meeting and call the board of selectmen to order. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. So it's about the proposed changes to the exemption of for the Heroes Act. This is also known as Smooth Day. So our current exemption amount 32 veterans who have a specific disability rating of 10% is $13,000. The current exemption amount $5,000. If we adopt maximum exemption amount, it'll increase $1,342. First, the new paying $7,200, and that will increase the cost $19,040. 30 veterans that is the free. We have 16 veterans that are 100% disability rating. The current exemption amount $15,000. They reimburse $12,375. Our current cost is $3,060. Make this local adoption be our maximum exemption amount of $30,870. If state reimbursement remains the same, $12,305. Cost this is $2,004. And total for all expenses currently spent $28,700. Our total state reimbursement $19,000. Our total cost $9,031. Local adoption, the maximum pension amount $357,200. State reimbursement gain $9,570. Right, so maximum $37,630. What I'm really concerned with is that it does increase $28,690 from the current cost. And so we have 4 residents that receive a veterans death and service related, and we receive a full reimbursement for that. This doesn't affect particular residents. It's other residents that have the disability ratings. And it's no more that and then it's that mentioned. So reimbursed. Comments, questions?
I think this is one last time we sort of talked about looking at increasing it commensurate with what some other communities in the state had done. So did those communities increase by 100 or what was the?
So the only one that did what we're presenting is ended. It's the full double and COLA. The other one, Sutton, Dale, Westboro, just the double. They didn't put in COLA.
Yeah.
So just like we played off the COLA into the separate clause. Yes. And then it matches amended. That's amended. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yes. So I thought so.
I move that the board vote to place an article on the fall special town meeting accepting general laws, chapter 59, section 5, clause 22J, and increasing the amount of the exemption granted under general laws, chapter 59, section 5 by 100%.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. The acceptance of donations in
Okay, I'm handling things for the department. This is a generous anonymous donor, donated $25 gift cards to Shaw's, to support the Upland Community Center food pantry.
questions, comments?
Very generous, really exceptional.
We always appreciate it. So do I need a motion?
I move that the select board vote George Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 53A to accept donation to the town of Upton Department of Elder and Social $25 cards from Shaw's totaling $500. Anonymous donor to receive food.
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Local Initiative Program Compliance Certificate for 32 Sienna Circle.
Good evening. Mike Esmell. Mike Esmell, Land Use Inspector Service. Hi. This is what it listed as a certificate of compliance with the local initiative program for 32 Sienna Circle. So that's one of the affordable units that was in that development. And so it is in compliance with that. You know, I'm in regular contact with the monitoring agent that monitors that development, confirming, you know, sale price and all that it's 30% of AMI and all that good business with respect to Eastern Woodford and all those numbers that we look at with regards to that. So it is in compliance. So it urged to endorse that tonight. Hopefully we have some more of these because I have Lauren, our assistant planner, is working on getting the rest of those added to our SHI list. So I guess after they did that project, it was never fully captured by the state to get on the SHI list. So I think there's 9 or 10. That'll be all accounted for, hopefully.
Questions, comments?
No.
Do I need a motion?
Board vote to execute the local initiative program compliance certificate for the affordable unit at 32 Sienna Circle, Unit 55, Upton, Mass.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Very much.
Tell me.
Okay, so I just wanted to remind residents as well as anyone watching our meeting that the Mendon Road Bridge in Northbridge is closed for the next year to up to 2 years. They're currently doing engineering design. This is something that the state has ordered the closure. And not only did we have a recent meeting with staff, DPW, myself, police, fire, to review this with the state officials, detour plans, but fire EMS has been working with our neighbors in Mendon and Northbridge to ensure fire call coverage because of the bridge being down. The town does have information on our website, first under news and announcements, for people to look at the routes, look at the detour routes. I haven't heard of any complaints yet. Perhaps 3 of you have, but I haven't heard any complaints. And there is a lot of signage in the area, really directing people down the main roads through Oxbridge to detour to Mendon that way. So it'll be interesting once BBT starts up in a couple of weeks. But
I think there might be kids that are aware of the change. Heard from people around. I couldn't get it from the office.
So also, thanks to Lynn Haggerty for a save the date reminder. Come Saturday, September 27th is our annual Heritage Day. So we're out front with promotional efforts, trying to get attention, get vendors, get departments to have a table down on the common. So always a great turnout, and I know for myself, I've enjoyed having a table and talking to residents and people about that. So again, that's September 27th, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. We received an email from National Grid regarding a program that first started with authorization of the Department of Public Utilities 2 years ago. This is a smart meter upgrade program for people who have had solar put on their homes. They've had smart meters installed and their old ones changed out. This is now continuing that effort and is really an effort across National Grid's service area. This, we don't have a timeline yet. They will be in touch with the town of Upton as well as individual residents and business owners with mailings and information. But it will basically be 2 phases. One will be a series of basically communication relays for collecting the data and then sending it back to National Grid. And then the second phase, which would happen 3 to 6 months once that phase is done, would be individual meter upgrades. So there will be more information that comes forward. National Grid, an email that sent out forwarding this information to the board, did indicate their willingness to come and speak if it was so requested. But there will be trucks out, and with I think some of the attention the town had, especially around small cells, this could prompt some concern, something else. So I want to get this information out as soon as possible. As everyone,
Just want to point out on that and sort of echo, that was certainly my first thought, was like, is this some kind of a backdoor to getting 5G or small cell infrastructure installed sort of under the guise of something else? And from quick research, it is not that at all. It literally uses the mesh network, which is the actual electrical wires themselves, which some people do in their houses to amplify their internet connectivity. So it's no different than what they're doing here, and it doesn't have anything to do with 5G or small cell infrastructure or capabilities. So that was good and reassuring.
so as everyone has experienced, we have a number of construction projects going on in town. Paving has wrapped up on the 140 paving project, which starts in Brampton, comes through, ends at William Street, picks up again as you come off of Milford Street at the end of where we are constructing our water and sewer infrastructure, and then continues into Oakdale. The next phase is, of course, going to be line painting, but as we all know from observing Dennis's work, we need a little time. We can't paint right away. Progress is steadily we are steadily progressing up Milford Street with our water and sewer project. It's slow, but it's consistent. And we wouldn't be doing this without the help of police officers doing details, as well as officers from other towns, and Dennis and the chief and any of his staff are in constant communication to make sure daily we have the adequate coverage for that project. Also, we have Fisk Ave in active construction. People may notice that we've pulverized and milled the northern section of Fisk Ave. Hopefully, the base will be installed later on this week, and that project is full steam ahead. Lastly, just wanted to comment on the water and sewer infrastructure project. At least currently, we're still anticipating staying on schedule for substantial completion January 2026. So that is absolutely going forward. Associated with that, everyone keeps asking what is going on with the TIP project. And as I had emailed the board, I was told in July we'd get some plans. It's now August 5th. I don't have the plans. But they are trying to resolve final comments, and we'll pass those along. They actually requested from us, Dennis and I, a meeting next week to talk about on-street parking. And the board may recall from, unfortunately, a year ago, there was this concept of potentially seeing if there was on-street parking available on lawn area next next to Pristine, closer to Country Super. The board wanted to see plans. I have not seen anything yet. I'm hoping to get a better understanding as far as the plots this coming Tuesday. We meet, and of course, anything we provide, send out. A lot of other things going on in the department are later on in this agenda, including starting wording for fall town meeting. And I'm working to make sure that a lot of projects are closed out, so that at least there's not any late projects for the interim state. Coming up events, and actually just at least one that occurred at 1 o'clock today. Chief Palmieri had root beer floats over at the community center, sort of a community invite. This coming Friday is my last coffee with the town manager. August 15th is the annual senior barbecue and ice cream social. For people that were interested, I hope they got their names in for spaces and tickets, because I did see a posting on Facebook today that they were sold out. Also, Fuse, which is our Friends of Upton Seniors group, they are launching a t-shirt sale for Fuse shirts as part of fundraising to support programs for the senior center. And for anyone that's in attendance at the barbecue, you can also pick up and purchase shirts at the barbecue. And there is in the senior center newsletter, which you can get not only through Facebook, but through the town's website, there's an order form for people to place. So August for many towns is quiet. For Upton, it's just business as usual. So busy going on in August.
Public input or board member? They don't have any input? They ran live. Oh, so can't see. There's many hands today. But underneath one and sideways to the other.
No hands.
Okay, anyone in the room have any comment? Moving right along, thank you. We have to put out some information. I see, you can check, and I believe you have an application in for the. These are important, or even always, tell you what you know. Okay. I just don't want to. You want to go yell tall.
Thank you. That would be embarrassing. I've got them sing this on liners. I feel like fangs. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
If it was okay. Oh, thank you all for accepting my and reviewing my application. My name is Drew Kitchen, and I've been a resident at 7 Mechanic Street. I'm a small business owner in Upton for about 4.5 years. Buy local, sell local is very important to me. So volunteering for this committee is consistent with my beliefs. I'm hoping it's beneficial. I have a degree in business management, studied construction management for 3 years while in Atlanta, early 2010s, and have a technical degree in sustainable ag and project. It's an array of knowledge which I hope I can draw from and do my part to develop fiscally responsible projects for the community on behalf of this. I really like some of the projects that I have seen with the EDC and West Upton Working Group. And hope I can again sit on the committee to help make that happen, as well as other future projects in business. Belgrade is lastly, volunteering and stuff that I've done around Upton. I'm with the Cultural Council. I volunteered with Heritage Day, Memorial Day. I've helped with a nonprofit at the Friends Club Fair. I've been to the West Upton Working. I've attended the last two EDC meetings. I'll participate in the Summit program through Sustainable Upton, and I attend in person in town meetings or select board meetings. And I have registered to vote in the Good Vote. About it. I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget and get sidetracked. So.
As you vote to become very active, and we really appreciate it. Yeah, especially I've noticed you all lives. So excited with everything. So, Maureen, questions, comments?
No. Awesome, thanks for all those.
Do I hear a motion?
I move that the select board vote to a free kitchen to the Economic Development Committee for.
Yes, one of us.
Yes, last time I said.
So the other appointment is for that coverage is.
No, I do not see her on with us remotely.
She was here last time, right? See that? Yeah, okay.
Questions, comments?
None here. I move that the select board vote to appoint Dianette Rutledge to the Mosquito and Tick Control Board for a 1-year term.
All in favor? Oh, excuse me, second.
Kind of vocal. Oh, we can discuss it.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. So, all in favor? All opposed? Aye. So 2 against 1. So I'm sorry, but thank you. Next is President from the Assessment Planning Board.
So in the board's packet, you have a letter from Charles DeGloria, who is the associate member of the planning board, and he is resigning because he's.
Personally, I appreciate your volunteers. Thank you very much for signing. As I read it. I'm sorry for serving, and I think it's always tough to be an associate. You take it, you know. Just appreciate that. If anyone else has any other questions, or if I have a motion. Questions, comments, motion. If somebody would leave a motion, I'll make a motion. Accept the resignation.
I move select board accept the resignation of Charles DeGloria from the planning board and associate member.
Second motion.
All in favor? Unanimous, thank you. The Charles for serving. Lisa, who's your appointment? Are you gonna do that, Joe, or?
I was looking to see if, because we may have loan.
Would you like to go back to your way on schedule?
Let me just Chief Palmieri is going to be here and speak. So if.
Okay, so we're about 2 minutes early.
Yep.
I'll be skipping that.
And we can review and approve essentially the scope for hazardous materials testing and reagents.
Viewers, that's.
It is.
You said it better.
Thanks for bigger when the bus hits two people versus just
So you both are sharing the same seat, there we go.
So just as far as some background, at the last meeting, the board discussed adding the scope when Criterion gave an initial presentation of where they were with the study of building angles. And a comment came out that there is an assumption of mold, lead, and asbestos. And I think everyone in the room knew, well, of course, there's all of those things. And it became a question as far as how much and so reached out with the project lead with Criterion and also set up a call with Dennis and myself to go over an initial draft scope. And one of the main things was, very often, Dennis and I, and sort of thinking on things, will have an initial thought as well as cost. And our initial reaction was, oh, that's a little higher than ours. What Criterion did in identifying what they were going to be doing and the extent that basically they covered the whole building, and in the revised scope that's forwarded yesterday to the board, we see that they were also going to provide a report on remediation costs as part of that. And when we're dealing with a building as large as that, having just assumption there's asbestos is different than quantifying what that's going to be and then really having accurate remediation costs. So, Des, you want to add anything on that?
Joe and I, like you said, we were kind of surprised that the price was as high as it was. So we decided to do a joint attack, if you will, on them and kind of scrutinize their scope of work and talk about if there were any other options or other ways, things that could be considered to try to lower the costs. And it was quickly understood when we realized that the nature of what we're asking to be done, that building, I mean, so much mold in there. And the nature of identifying asbestos is so tricky because there's so many different types it can be, and it's mixed in with silicate, it can be everywhere. So we understood the liability that's associated with these type of, felt that it was in our best interest to support the quote. Come before the board and say, look, we took a look, tried to look at it, tried to think if there were any ways that we could mitigate some of these costs and get it down. I feel strongly that we should support being recommended. But we wanted to make sure that we did all that before we came before you. We knew that and just take face value and good idea. Because it's a lot of money. And furthermore, it's so much money that it would definitely exhaust the town manager's account for this type of situation. So one of the things we need to further discuss after we make it pass, if the board supports moving forward with this, is the funding pattern. We have identified the ability to pay for the funding immediately through building maintenance division, but it's going to create a deficit because last year, especially, the health bill, we have really scrutinized based on the history of the community center being online for enough of a time period to give us some trending for our electrical and our gas. It's what I'm trying to get to is that's a really lean budget. We're taking this kind of money out of it. It needs to be replaced. I think that's how it should fall. But the good news is there is an immediate funding source. Our recommendation is to go forward.
And just, I'd like to clarify, not only are we identifying the lead, the asbestos, the mold, but the cost of remediation throughout the building.
So one of the things, sorry Dennis, that was identified as part of our discussion last time was it was structural stabilization that was needed that included addressing the first floor. If you have to do any sort of work to the floor, and if there's asbestos, you're dealing with it right there. So coming up with these costs at this stage compared to waiting later
It will give us a better holistic picture, because likewise, if we're doing some of that work, and we're expecting contractors to be in an environment which is mold, we may have to remediate, we may have to do things in step. And having that full picture will give us a better understanding, rather than saying, well, we were seeking funding at town meeting for the hazardous material assessment, and we'll have to sort of rule on some of those things. Our view was, we can make budgetary corrections at fall town meeting. When you look at later on the agenda, that's one of the first items that we have is amendments, sorry, I still have that. Amendments to the FY26 budget to accommodate this and any other things that we may need.
Well, I think to get a wider estimate of the project, I think this needs to be. Or do you have any questions, comments?
Where in the scope of work was it identified that they're going to be providing detailed costs of remediation for all of the substances?
It's not within the packet, it was in a separate email that I forwarded from the engineers yesterday.
We made certain that that was.
It's in there, we're good.
Questions, comments?
No, that was not.
Everybody's good, do I hear a motion?
I move that the select board authorize the town manager to execute the contract with Criterion Engineers in the amount of $17,743.50. Testing of Holy Angels as presented.
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous? We're still 5 minutes ahead of time. We can vote to open the special town meeting warrant on August 6th.
So before we talk about the next item, I have Chris Karen here, and he's listening in, and we're sort of doing some things behind the scenes trying to address the quality of the audio, volumes from the board, specifically Laura and Maureen. If you could speak more into the microphone, we're not picking up that sound. We do need to have them come back and recalibrate the microphones, because that's clearly what the issue is. If people project more across the board and out, then it's picking things up, but it's the side conversations that aren't making it up there that these microphones we're trying to bring in to try to capture that sound. But
Okay, so when I speak, should I look in this direction?
yeah.
We had Chris put these across the desk, and I was worried
When people were presenting, they wouldn't be heard, so
we'll just keep sharing microphone.
I hope that you can say that's better.
Like this is very simple, and I am able to be heard. Okay. So now, to open the special town meeting warrant.
I move that the select board pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 39, Section 10, and 10 Code, Chapter 100, to open the warrant for the Tuesday, November 4th, 2025 special town meeting on Wednesday, August 6th, 2025, and to close said warrants on Friday, September 5th, 2025 at noon. Said special town meeting to be held at Nipmuc Regional High School, 90 Pleasant Street, Upton.
I'll second.
All in favor? Okay, unanimous? Do you want to roll into the discussion of potential articles for special town meeting? That we're not confused. All right.
Sure. So as usual, we usually start these things with the initial list as far as what staff has identified and is working on. Tomorrow morning, night,
We'll go out to all boards and committee members, letting them know that the warrant is open. So over this next month, we're gonna get articles and dribs and drabs from various boards and committees. We also wanted to make sure there's some items that, you know, we're gonna be following up for discussion on the 26th. And also make sure that if there's items that the board feels are important, that can identify those and so that staff can start working on those. So for example, we'll have a placeholder for, Holy Angel stabilization, really more encompassing and then allowing to focus down in as discussions go on. And there may be an instance, especially with Holy Angels, that even though the warrant closes on September 5th, there may be some need to, within that month of September, because the warrant's locked, basically, it needs to be locked at the beginning of October. So if you needed to open up the warrant to make a change, or for example, funding, you get a presentation from Criterion, there's going to be discussion about where that funding is coming through. If it results in CPC, they'd hold a meeting, but they may not have that language. So the board, has time for flexibility within September. But we want to at least provide the placeholders to allow for the board to whittle things down as far rather than really expand. Same thing with Department of Public Works. You have a building committee that is working, and a request is not necessarily defined yet. Is it going to be just carrying the design from 25% through bid documents? Do we want to try to have any allowance for construction? Those are still topics of discussion with the building committee, and they'd like to get in front of the select board coming up on August 26th to also give an update where they are with that project. We just talked about potential amendments to the annual town meeting, the annual operating budget. And we earlier just talked about accepting clause 22J of the HERO Act. After this, also have the draft jailbreak bylaw that Armin had first met with the select board. The select board had indicated support, so addressing some feedback from the board, and I know we definitely have some input from our community director as well. I also, while it's not on this list, the fire chief is going to be submitting a request for a home rule petition to extend employment of the fire chief beyond the age of 65. And I've asked them to be prepared to come and speak at the board meeting as well. Things are fluid, and I want to make sure while things are fluid, there's nothing that maybe the board had as a priority that I want to make sure fit in with them.
I know the Board of Health is working on a noise bylaw, a specific noise bylaw for the town. And I don't know, the best place for the jailbreak is in that. We can ask Mr. Westgate his opinions of that. But the Board of Health is working on a noise bylaw and also a dog bylaw regarding our parks and beaches, and to kind of clarify. So if we want to add those two, that would be, those are two other items that we're going to try very hard to get done. I don't think anybody has missed anything, Brett?
Just a question on the amendments to the annual town operating budget. Is that what specifically is that referring to?
Well, we already know that because of how lean the facilities budget,
Yeah.
by taking an additional 17,000 out, we may want to try to replace those funds.
Yeah.
Rather than wait until the end of the fiscal year. And say, okay, we only do this for
Just wanted to make sure it was in reference to that and not something else. That's great. And the design, I know this is the conversation we're having, right? The design bids and construction, like that would imply that we're asking for money to actually do the construction as well as the design and process and engineering and drawings and
and that's where, for both of those, construction may not be there as these continue to get refined. It's easier to put a placeholder expanding it and then narrow it down, and vice versa, be in the situation of.
When we think about funding, certainly for the DPW, but also for, mostly I'm thinking of it in terms of Holy Angels, is there work that we can start to do now to identify potential grants or matches or those kinds of programs that would support funding? Because obviously going into special town meeting with as much of that information and detail as possible is better than saying, oh yeah, we're gonna go look for this stuff. It's better to say, we look and we found here's what it is.
Christmas wish list.
It's not gonna, it just goes over better if people have more concrete information. So I feel like I don't necessarily want to wait until we get the estimate and the engineering and all the work back to say, okay, now let's go look for some grants. I feel like those are probably pretty well known. They are, and what the timing is of those.
Yeah, I think on a higher level, we have to identify those opportunities, and some of them have been discussed in public meetings about.
Like who's doing that though? Like who's like responsible for making sure that's getting done?
So that would be on the town to make sure that the director of land use and special services, you know, is able to provide assistance like they were the lead for submitting for the block grant for, which we haven't heard any results, for accessibility improvements to Christine as well as.
So it really ends up
So
being
he's the primary person that ends up drafting it, and as a team effort, because some of them, depending on what the size and scope, will require input from Dennis, from the county side, facility side, public safety, I think that it's a historical commission, as well as, you know, even accessing the knowledge and resources of the cultural council as far as identifying what next steps. One of the things is that.
So Mike is the quarterback. That was the main thing I wanted to know. Is
Realistically,
the person that's
for this, he's gonna, you know, get quarterback.
I just have a quick question. Jim, you can remind us of, so like when the grants open in a certain series, like the Vermont grant open at a certain date, we'll get results on that in December. That's the end date for that. But like when the community compact grants come up and all, those are all at the same time. So when do they start? Remind us of when.
Right, so some of those, which there are some historical, through Mass Historical, there are grant programs that are off cycle from the One Stop for Growth grants that the town has applied for, like water and sewer extension project that primarily is due in June and then awards in August, September. So some of those things also depend on the town identifying, like after the 28th, when we get the report, okay, is the cost such that, you know what, this is doable and it's subsidizing and finding different resources through Mass Historic and for that structural stabilization.
my point is, why do we have to wait until the 28th to start something?
I think it comes down to also managing workload. There's a couple of projects that Mike is finishing up on and making sure that like these things are on the radar. Some of the things like there's a municipal program for reuse of municipal buildings, which I would be a great candidate for. We're able to identify those because those have been cycled on staff by way of email saying this is a resource that we need to keep on our to-do list so that next April, this is a resource. Some of that stuff are quick. There's just a bullet list of things to watch out for. That we can pull together pretty quick.
Is there anyone on a state level that we can reach out to and say, hey, you want to do a historic church? Where would we find a grant? Like I know if you're treating at a hospital, you can literally go on to clinical counseling. Do they have anything like that?
Oh, yeah, just reaching out to Mass Historic to identify, hey, this is what we're dealing with, this is what we're calling, what resources. I mean, that's the same thing. An email to Central Mass Regional Planning, identify
this is our goal, how can CMRPC, and, the town is able to contract if it came to a manpower issue. We're able to contract, like we are with Green Communities, with CMRPC, to assist in drafting grants and all those things. And grants do cover administrative costs, say if you were hiring CMRPC. So, but it all starts with really identifying, like, are we dealing with a historic preservation project? Are we dealing with a arts cultural project? What is that end result? We can conceptually just spout things off because year to year, these things are consistent. So all it is just a search through the state working with Central Mass Regional Planning on identifying potential resources. That part does not take much effort. And, it really then is executing on what's come up and what is the support information to support that effort.
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with identifying everything that's available, creating a matrix. So you start by saying, what is available that's out there that we know of? Every single one that could be applied to that building in some shape or form, to a value associated with it, and then the time frames. And then you sit there and you prioritize those. And some of them exclude each other based on which one's local. And at the end of the day, you hope that you have enough information based on that, and you make a decision, which one you're going to allow. But we think you have the most success with it. Yeah, but as the town manager said, that stuff is off the tile. It doesn't take that long. You have to go after the grant and all of the sleeves.
That's where the town had applied, or the town supported the Grange's effort to apply to Mass Historic. Our community preservation article that funded some of that work was the match that Mass Historic required. So part of it is also then understanding and relaying to the board the timing of some of these, especially if there's a match, because then that ends up being an art a lot of time. To say, sometimes there are 10, 15% match getting that funding like that.
Exactly. The only thing I thought was coming up later in this meeting is your placeholder for 12 meetings.
I just realized that's not on there, and also the adjacent, zero.
Potential zero, yes. So we're gonna
That
have,
needs to be added.
okay, and you'll have, I assume you're gonna have a draft one for this.
All of the articles pulled together, and that's, as we were interviewing town council, one of the things they identified as part of the standard was on making sure that the ordinance all fine.
Yeah, that for one cost. I had talked to the woman who orders everything fine because she's
So, okay.
Does anybody have any other thoughts, additions?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
I have,
I think after the warrant closes, scheduling that meeting to have those presentations come in and those boards once they do submit. And that's where, for the 26th, DPW specifically wants to meet with the board to give an update where things are, to talk about the project and get some guidance from the board as well, as far as scope of the project, timeline, and a strategy as far as working through and ultimately seeking approval for funding by town meeting.
Chief, how are you? Just don't take up on the chair until I walk out. Sit down, where you go? Thank you for coming tonight. You want Chief to lead off, or would you like to, or?
So I'll first speak. The chief is here in case there's any sort of questions, but also to happy to say that we're aiming for candidate for police officer with Upton. It did take us a little bit longer, so that's why I wasn't on the agenda when we had the other officer. Completed the full background and for confirmation by the board have the proposed appointment for Rossi.
You want to say anything?
Yeah, I'd like to recommend Officer Rossi for appointment. She comes from Westboro, having spent 16 years as a police officer there. With multiple responsibilities, including as a sexual assault investigator. She worked pretty tightly with the schools, strong community engagement. She had left and continued public service as a teacher. That ended, and she still felt like she had a call for police service. I'm excited about her joining this department. She has significant experience for the young force.
Questions, comments, no?
That's right, we're from the hour.
I move that the select board vote pursuant to section 4, subsection I of the town contract and just Laura Rossi as a board officer within
Unanimous. Congratulations. If you are, congratulations.
Thanks for coming.
A little closer.
So discussing, we discussed the potential articles, but we didn't discuss the draft, which is. Okay, that's where we are now. Yes.
Some comments. Chief Lee as well.
I'm not gonna steal anything from Chief Thunder. You did a lot of investigating and polling nearby towns that are already adopted a bylaw to get feedback from the police departments on what they thought worked and what they thought didn't work. So, like I said, I'm not gonna steal this stuff. I have a couple of points I just want to make for the board so that we have a very candid conversation about it. I'm not opposed to a Jacob break system restriction for certain areas of the town. However, I think it's important to recognize our trucks have it, and we use them. And we save the taxpayers a great deal of money for the brakes. We're familiar with how the system works. It's specific for when you have heavy loads on a truck. And one of the biggest wear and tear items on these 10-wheelers and 6-wheelers is the brake system. They work quite the opposite of a regular car. Where regular car's brakes are naturally open. And if you depress the pedal, it pressurizes your master cylinder, sends fluid to your brakes, and the calipers close the pads on the rotors, causing the friction to slow and stop the vehicle. On heavy equipment, it's the opposite. The brakes are naturally closed. That's a safety mechanism. So when you stop the truck, a compressor on board provides air canisters. And as it pressurizes and builds pressure, it opens the calipers and releases the brakes. And when you depress the brake pedal, you actually bleed the canisters of air pressure, closing the brakes. So it's a very elaborate system, and it's designed for safety. Because of that, it's extremely expensive, and it's one of the most expensive maintenance upkeep things that truckers experience, including the DPW. And so the Jacob brake system utilizes the engine's own exhaust of pressure within the valves, coming out of the valves and the pistons, to create engine pressure. And the engine slows down the vehicle, saving the brakes. You still need the brakes to bring the vehicle to a complete stop. But this, especially when you have heavy loads, can really give you an immense amount of extra life on the brakes. And they allow you to control your loads much better when you're on steep hills, or especially in inclement weather. So like I said, both of our 10-wheelers and half of our 6-wheelers have this system, and we utilize the system. Most of the ones today are even 10 or 15 years old, and you don't hear them because the system. Everything's more pistons and smaller valves, and that equates to less noise, flatter exhaust, and you don't hear them as much. But a lot of the old trucks that are still on the roads that have the inline sixes, the pistons are, because of manual car. These things generate a lot of noise when they use the system. That's the ones that are culprits of what we hear. So my 2 cents is that I understand it's a quality of life thing, and I'm not opposed to having one. I just don't know that I would support being town-wide. Whereas I think that there are instances where it is a cost savings to, especially to the public works department. And we could not expect the town to put up signs and have town banning on the general brake system in the east. Doesn't work. If it becomes illegal, then I can't use it on my trucks. And they have those trucks equipped.
It's not just maintenance issue, correct me if I'm wrong, it's a safety issue. There are times you need that G brake to stop the truck.
Once you do something, it will slow it down, and it lets you control your road and your descent a little more stable than your brakes do, especially if your brakes are starting to get, a lot of the truckers let their brakes go as long as they possibly can, because it's a big expense when they do all the brakes, like it's $1,000. So they tend to rely on this system to slow that truck down the heavy roads. But we have a lot of residential neighborhoods that have some very close to the streets, and some steep hills, and it's a quality of life thing. Absolutely, we see it.
I understand a system like that, you're the smart open. You don't want, you know, you have a couple tons of cement behind you and you don't want it sliding down the hill.
But I think it's important that the board hear from the chief as well, so I think. The chief did a lot of homework and, area where other towns have adopted this bylaw and what they found was success.
Thank you.
I agree with that as far as potential effectiveness passing the bylaw. What I gather from area departments that have a similar bylaw, a couple of things. One, it can tend to be difficult to enforce. It's not as clear cut as 4 miles away, radar, and speed. It's also on a bylaw ticket, different than a chapter 90 citation, which goes. What I did get from the chiefs that I spoke with and communicated with is that it seems like the signs prohibiting use of engine brakes is probably the most effective part of the bylaw. The education, the information to truck drivers. In addition to that, input was given that indicates putting signs on the exterior of the town as far as the points of entry into the town lines and the major roads, probably more effective than having it closer to downtown. So the problem might be downtown, if that's where that's coming from. But I think educating the truck drivers that as soon as they enter the town, that use of an engine brakes prohibited is more effective. And making sure that the signs are appropriate, large enough to be read. Nowadays, and having signs that just clearly indicates that it's prohibited and large enough that truck drivers are going to notice. Education, I think, is a part of that. So stops that have been made by towns that I surveyed, a lot of it might be verbal warnings, but again, education is always interacting with the truck drivers. Probably the same truck drivers are going to be in and out of town, so advising them that the use of that brake is prohibited was effective. It seemed like it reduced it.
I know, my children went to school in Holliston, and I know if you enter downtown Holliston, it says approaching no chain brake zone. So we talk about something like that, or just the sign on the outside.
So, like, say coming in from Hopkins Road, right at the town line, or near London Street, but as you enter, that was the input from one of the chiefs. from the get-go. The term Jake break was also last night to be used on a Sunday,
It's not a technical term.
but a Jake,
J-Bus brake system.
so, but engine brake, I think Jake brake is also a trademark term, so there's some concerns with signage in that way. But engine brake is.
Yes, we had only certain portions of the town where it was not allowed, so that we weren't affecting our vehicles. You're the one that always tells me we can't paint yellow lines because neither one of us look good in orange. Can we put a sign up saying, yellow zone is the entry town, or does it have to be in? Say we did, you want something where it's extremely congested and they're heading into the light or something. Could we need to put signs up, or I guess I'm looking for guidance.
I think if you adopt the bylaw, you can decide which roads in town you want to go back. It's not to be a town law. You can determine that you want. Because in roads on the street, part of that, and what. Down the street, there are schools, and that's what's on the line. The park around south, areas like this one, they don't tend to use this braking system a lot, rains. And there's another.
Yeah, that's what's really gonna be my question is like, can we isolate, because there's 3 areas in town where 90% of the complaints come in. And maybe we target 3 areas. If like you just round off 6 or 8 of them, or 10 of them, then maybe you just do it just more generally, because I think that, at some point, I don't have 60 signs that say no engine braking around town.
No,
I
guess I'm asking if we put, no compression braking, and but then we in the bylaws identified certain portions of town, then we will be affecting our DPW budget and trucks because they needed it somewhere. If they're going down Forest Beach Road and they need it, they could use it.
I'm sure there's a way to write it that would be better. I don't know.
Yes. So that's Scott's law. You got it, goes right through the center of town, the whole town.
I'm wondering if the humming noise is going to affect any of the quality of our audio, because we've been having problems to begin with.
So I think one of the main things is, signs, says a way. One of the times the state is, willing to at least entertain requests from the town. They usually can say no. But I absolutely would ask. And the second thing is that, like I said, I put up on the screen, Northborough did have, and in the board's packet, not only had the language, but then also had examples. Northborough did have language where they said, designated portions of. So the board could, and I just put it in, just to exemplify that. We could then have a portion of public way within the bylaw, unless we be reviewed by town council. They probably say the same thing, because I've talked to town administration managers that basically said, you're not going to get rich bringing tickets off this. And as the chief said, it's the signs that if they can cut those.
Yeah, we're not trying to get rich, we're just trying to reduce complaints.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I'm sure it's going to be hard to catch because somebody calls up and says, hey, I'm here on the chief first, by the time you guys look at it, they're wrong. Right. Yeah. But I do think, I think signs are very effective. I think sometimes people see a sign and go, you're right, I don't want one everywhere, but maybe in certain high complaint areas, you could put, and 100 feet, 1,000 feet before entering a no-take or whatever.
have a way to identify those types of complaints, that's like some serious data mining into police logs, I'm assuming, but do we know where the problem areas are mostly?
Most of the complaints I get are the Aqueduct South, High Street, Hopkinton Road, and Westmore. Westmore was a long descent. So those are the main ones I really don't hear that are Aqueduct South. I haven't heard any complaints. And we hear them as we drive around town, and our ears are tuned to that. We catch it even when they're kind of quiet. That's the thing. The problem with that road is that's a main example. It's identified in the cost signs as a trucking route. So, conversation. I don't know, saying that they wouldn't allow us to do it. Like I said, these main arteries are, they're trying. Just say it's awesome. You don't want somewhere is gonna be, yeah. So we can work out.
Okay, so I don't know if we started the discussion. If we have any other questions, comments, thoughts?
It seems like there's general support for doing something.
And do you think this is the best way, or best place to put it versus, like, I know that Board of Health is working on this bylaw, and you think that should be separate because this is roads?
I think that between the chief, myself, and the town manager, some conversations, and also try to keep it out and target where we think that we all understand. Without something else.
Yeah, I would love that, and I took the feedback that you got, which is we want to do something, we don't want a ton of signs, we want it to be targeted, but we also don't want to, right, so I think if you all come back to us with it's what it is. Go for that.
I think that allows the options to actually conduct a sale on these. Much more light and it's a little more difficult.
Individual roads.
Yeah, your jurisdiction, which that's sort of, that's just the science things. Maybe cold. Okay. No. No. All right, yes. Right, so. All right, I do believe we're on town manager plans. And we're going to the, review and approval of the town manager recruiting consultant. Thank you.
So for the board within the packet is RFQ that town council had gone through. I kept the track sheet just so you can see everything that changed from the 2016 version when the town last published an RFQ for.
Is there any questions, comments? I have to say, I did too. I printed it and I was like, right, this is double page. I said, help now in the way. My theory on that is, town council knows best.
So the one thing for the board did want to identify timelines that proposals being due Thursday, August 28th. That would allow for the board and the interim town manager to review. And then title selection date of September 9th. And that would also allow for the board to invite them in for interviews.
I think if we did, I'm looking at a calendar, applications due by the 28th, I think I'd like to give us like 30 days. And we can do it in less, but the 2 week, let's do this again. So if we get 30 days to choose someone, because we go through, we have to reorder or,
For the search firm?
yeah, just
For responses, because there's 3 that are actively used, and then there's a 4th that has only been in sporadic. So you're really just gonna get I would expect 3 proposals and maybe a 4th. So we're not gonna get people from
I don't necessarily think we'll
outside
see
of
that much.
no, I'm thinking that, if we put it in the perfect, that's so tricky. If proposals are due by the 20th, and our next meeting is the 9th, we would bring them in something between the 9th and say the 30th. Or,
The 9th you could do, because
Bring them in on the 9th.
bring them in on the 9th? If we just bring,
there could be only 2.
you know.
There could be.
I just want to try to, if we say this, okay, so say we do this, don't get everybody. We have to, you just told me to do it.
It's 9-0 chance that you're gonna get a.
Yeah, no, that's, I live in a world where deadlines are hard to pass, so. Yeah, I just want to make it so it's a little bit of time, out there with the deadline, we have 30 days to choose, but if you think we can do it, if everyone thinks we can do it by the 9th.
Not just the town manager, we're just choosing a search firm.
Right. Well, I think once this is cleaned up.
It's really the only thing.
Colors, they fixed it.
There's misspellings in here that need to be changed, grammatical things that need to go through, but, gladly send you a copy to go through. And many of these, because, we'll advertise it, but also we be directly, emailing things out. These recruiting companies know when there's changes in positions, so.
The vouchers are circling? They've been circling already?
We may be accurate in that.
It is. Everybody knows everything here, so. So as long as, like I said, if you want to clean it up.
Also, it's always wonderful to get one last set of eyes on things.
You got a motion on that?
Yes.
I'll share with you. Good. I move that the board vote to publish the RFQ for town manager recruitment services as presented.
All in favor? Aye. Unanimous. Vote to create town manager search committee.
So, and the Town Managers Act identifies a number, so this is just one of those procedural steps laid out in the Town Managers Act.
I move that the board vote to seek volunteers to serve on the town manager screening committee.
All in favor?
Aye. Just so folks know that the formation or the community structure is all laid out in the town manager act. So that's all five Upton residents selecting 3 qualified candidates.
Reading along, if they find it on page 63, 92, that's good. Have a good day. And, vote to designate interim town manager.
Put this in the packet to sort of just have the town manager act section that references this, since with my last day being August 29th, there will be a temporary absence of more than 30 days until the new manager is designated in his position. So that in and of itself, is a very department of interim.
Right, and I might vote but you're taking a couple of days off that week.
So that would then, what I would do is appoint an acting for that period of time, because technically I'm still in the position if I was off Thursday and Friday. So we'd be covered no matter what.
To the 30th.
So this would, my official last day would be that Friday.
I don't want to hurt you financially, doesn't make sense. And you have days, you start the Friday before, then you could take time with your family or.
Realistically, they're all in school, and there's a lot that I'd like to be able to get cleaned up, so it's not like, when I left Littleton and came here, did like a trip down to South Carolina, all that stuff. I just will be doing house chores. Take additional time off.
So he'll be ready.
So, that, that week I'll still be doing things. I don't start.
And so, if you're gonna be out a couple of days, is you and Dennis overlap?
You can, but that's where I would just identify him as. So when I went on vacation, in last year, I appointed Dennis as acting for that. And that's what under the Town Managers Act allows for those temporary coverage. So this would maybe a day, maybe 2, but we already have a mechanism for that, so that the interim would start effective August.
Right now.
Okay. Questions, comments, fine?
My understanding was Derek sort of continued on in a part-time capacity while he was actually in Plymouth until, I think
Temporary.
Dennis was identified interim for like, it was about a 4-week period. So,
I have a record for it was 3 or 4 months. Exactly what Joe said, I mean, he has a day off drunk. You see as acting, so he can employ that suit, which is needs to do. And we actually take on the first.
If that works.
Yeah.
As long as everybody's on board. You want to be the last? Do I hear a motion? I move that the board pursuant to chapter 391 of the Act of 2000 and Act establishing the office
Section 6. Appoint Dennis Westgate as town manager of
And the motion.
All in favor? Aye, unanimous.
You.
Listen, he's done it before, he didn't run. Keep coming, hiding behind you. The kind of like in class, like, oh, he's calling on me. Okay. So, next is execution of agreement between the town of Upton, Vincent, 12B,
As
Main Street. If I'm going to butcher both names, I apologize. Deeply apologize. Yes.
So, in the board's packet is an agreement. This was prepared by town council, and it basically is an agreement between property owners of 12B Milford Street and the town, whereby the property owners take the property off the market. We engage the services of an appraisal company, which I'm currently doing to request quotes. Engage them to do an appraisal of the property, and then bring that material back to the board to then discuss, have the board discuss making an offer. So this basic agreement just says for the next 2.5 months, this is what we're doing. And ultimately, as was discussed by town council, you have the appraisal and the town that can make that offer. And if you come to an agreement, it's all then just pending town meeting's approval. Process, or they could decline it. But this at least gets that process started and allows us to get an appraiser to determine how much fair market value. Because we're dealing with what realistically is, it's even going to be under 10,000 for this appraisal. I just need quotes for services. We'll have a defined scope of work. We have plenty of examples, so then we'll just seek 3 proposals from ones that have done them with the town to get a quote, and then go with whatever is the most responsive.
I move that the board vote to authorize the town manager to execute the agreement between town of Upton and Interdetics and Business Agents for property at 12B Milford Street in Upton as presented.
Yeah, we should sit the page for that.
Thank
Thank you. Do I hear a second? All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Special meeting scheduled for fall.
Yes, it does. So just laid out, we had originally seen a schedule of August 5th and 19th and September 2nd and 16th. Or changing the last meeting to the 26th, then we would have a back-to-back meeting that first September 2nd, which, quite honestly, I wouldn't want Dennis to have to worry about coming right back from Labor Day weekend, dealing with the board meeting right away.
I think so. I kind of hesitated after dealing with the board and then went to meeting.
Plus, it's a lot of preparation to ensure that the agenda is in place. And if you push the August 26th and then the September 9th, it maintains every other week. And there's actually 5 Tuesdays in September. So then you roll right back into October 1st and 3rd. Or always schedule more meetings.
Questions, comments? Everyone good? Yes.
So that is, um, sorry, that should be,
Well, one is town meeting is the fourth, which is what the third.
I'm just pulling up the calendar. That was, it should be the 18th, would be the, next classification hearing.
Okay. Thanks. Make the motion and then just say as presented in the.
Okay.
All in favor? Aye. Unanimous. Project updates, discussion, future meeting topics.
So, first, apologize for the small font. Wish I had microphones for you, sorry, magnifying glasses for you, for this, but it is a comprehensive, list, and wanted to provide the board an update of where many of these things were, because there are things that were ticked off the list this year. For example, removal of the yellow barriers, the paving of the parking lot. We closed out the LSP is closed out reporting on gravel lot, 0 Grove Street. We painted Christine Building. Van, we have no issues. I have ongoing the second COA van, but we're just awaiting delivery date for that. Everything's been executed, so that's going to be crossed off the list very soon. The board knows where Milford Street and Fisk Gavhar, and both of which are going to be completed early 2026. Granted, with Fisk Gav letting the surface over winter and then finishing up in the spring. Some other updates include the capital plan update. That is one of those things that by the time I leave, staff will just have to identify whether or not that just puts on sort of like a temporary pause, because it is very staff intensive as far as finalizing the capital plan, the documents moving the capital committee. So some of these things that are really more staff driven out of the town manager's office just may need to pause a little bit to give people some breathing space. But projects like the Kiwanis softball field retaining wall, CHA, the consultant, has presented schematic plans, and the next step is recreation to review and provide feedback. We had the presentation from CHA on the common plan, where Mike and I are working with them to finalize that project. I gave you an update on the TIP project. General facility discussion that we had back last year with Mendon Upton Recreation. We identified various recreation projects that they needed. Those all came in front of the annual town meeting. So, and BDT and Mendon Upton received money from the state as part of the Accelerated Repair Program, and also were funded by town meeting. So that's another item that realistically comes off the list. One of the main things, and I can provide this electronically to all of you, so that if there's things you want to add, we can add that on. There's more smaller little things that we're doing than really are captured in here. So for example, the Affordable Housing Trust with finalizing the Habitat for Humanity. I just realized I don't have this on the list. And, I'll be sending around to staff to make sure if there's something you're tracking, just make sure to add it on so we have this comprehensive list. Make sure that at least in any sort of transition, things don't fall off and all of a sudden it's 2 years later. You can get funding for this, isn't this out there? So trying to go through and make sure that at least these things are documented. Sorry, I'm trying to, so we applied for funding through CMRPC for some assistance. We had the MOD grant for handicap accessibility for Christine as well as for up at the beach. Not knowing what, okay. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I think the sign outside needs to.
That actually should have been on there, and I'm working on pulling together that application as well.
There's areas where we really getting swans to warn us is the goose population seems to be exploding at a time. They have this year has been a year. And you know I complained to the cemetery, and I know swans, people swans. I told you there was one in there. I go down and eat it, and when we got to feed it, it would say itself in there. It left.
The companies that will provide these services and tell you all about what you can do for the swans, and they trim their wings so that they don't depart from the lake, and they just do their thing. And you can have the dogs. We've done the dogs for a while too, and I think the more we can do, the better.
I think he figured out. That's an interesting thought too. They waddle. My complaint is the geese go all over the beach. That is true. Like an electrical fence somewhere. Get fireworks out of my garden. Yeah, I share my okay, that's different. It's set on gravestone. Yeah, that would be a mess. My husband was supposed to be like, it was raining, and the springs came over, so it doesn't work. And my husband being, because he had some and that's what I did, you know what?
What are the next steps on the property adjacent to the Rose Garden to go in line with Total Year? I know.
So on that, I've already.
Wasn't on the market, but.
I've executed a right of entry for that property. So once we get a appraiser on, then we'll have a.
Okay, so you talked to the owner already?
He signed the agreement right then and there.
Oh, okay.
The reason why it doesn't need to come in front of the board because one, this is more of a we're asking it to take a credit off. Dollars, but for the access easement, this is just for me to have my hired appraiser go onto their property. So
the appraiser's gonna look at.
Lars, yep.
Okay.
We have some items left over from last year that we update on because
We ran out of time to get all of them, so maybe we're going to practice. And some of them were just in basics. This building, the framework on this building is one. And I'm hoping to have a solid concrete price for town meeting to repaint the seal, including all of the permits that we have to go through. That would be one. The fire department training that we didn't do last meeting will need to be brought back up consideration. And then we had Memorial Athletic Field lighting was a concern to the leagues that asked the town to consider upgrading the lights. And we had some discussions about it. We talked about some old articles that we researched about. Those articles were never decided in the fall. And we decided to research that the lighting really is the responsibility of the town, not so much the school. We had some conversations with them to sure they weren't going to be redoing the fields and looking at modifications to layouts. So at some point, we need to revisit that, take a look at, have an expert come in and suggest whether or not it's something as simple as, you know what, you've got the basics here. If you upgrade your fixtures and maybe your main panel, your timer, you can have this system, or you say, this is old and dangerous, we need to talk about, we need to have that discussion.
One thing that sort of jumps out at me is, or is there opportunity to, how do we think about staying informed and tracking $30 million worth of MURSD projects that got approved? Like, do we invite Jay in? Is there some committee they've got? Like, I mean, $10 million projects, that's a lot of project management, a lot of program oversight, a lot of planning coordination that they don't have resources to do. So what's happening? Because people are asking me almost constantly about it.
So there is a building committee, and they've only had 2 meetings so far, and I've gone to them, and it basically was almost like organizational and getting updates as far as, well, here's going to be meetings. Getting final reports back from one of the OPMs that was really more for the move project. They're focusing right now. So one of the main things is that we do have Bill Andrews. It was appointed onto that building. I think it would be beneficial to ask if he's able to come in and recall us. Give an update. What's going on? That would probably be the easiest thing, just to extend that invitation / make that request.
Yeah. That'd be great.
And what, because, that's what I'm not in. I don't want to get any questions about when it's going to happen, what's going on.
Yeah, you are excited about it.
Excited about that $30 million.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have a couple of appointments that I have to get approved, and I know we're commenting, we sent an email out. We did one of them, one is my superintendent. One part to promote, quarterly. Here's the status individual, showing the status individual as well.
Our response is in Joe's inbox. In the affirmative.
Yes.
Okay, myself.
I think it isn't,
I can't assume, but my response was identical.
I'm going.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Show me that.
Anything else? Anything else?
What am I saying?
I was back again. I was the only one broke.
Oh,
Just
Just about 2 weeks, I only have the grant. Yeah, we'll talk about hiring.
no. Anything else? Are we part of the minutes?
Everyone unanimous? Any questions, comments? Changes? Great. Do we have a motion on this?
I move that the board vote to approve the following meeting minutes. Regular meeting minutes, June 17th, 2025, and July 1st, 2025.
All in favor? Unanimous?
I move that the board vote to approve the following meeting. Executive session meeting, June 17th, 2025, July 10th, and 15th.
All in favor?